ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy. But the first time somebody told me that, I don't know, I thought they were bullshitting me, so boom. I showed you. The thing is, right. And then I started seeing it everywhere I look. Everywhere I look, all these fucking pricks. Everywhere I look, doing the exact same fucking thing. Over and over and over and over and over. Thank you. This time, it's gonna be different.
Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today, I want to delve into video games, specifically exploring why many of us no longer feel the same excitement about gaming. If you can't pick up a game to play or find yourself paralyzed in front of your list of games, then tell me if this sounds like you. And if you could do me a favor, please close your eyes. As you're listening to me now, chances are you're probably tired, bored, sleepy, or all of the above. Whether or not you did something productive today, you have responsibilities and obligations, places to be and people to see, things you either want or have to do. However much they matter to you, the amount of thinking and planning you do in your day, or the mental energy required to spend throughout your day, makes you tired. Finally, though, you're done with everything for today. You're able to let out a sigh of relief as you close the door behind you, eat something, wear comfortable clothes, and relax, knowing you won't be needing to go out for the rest of the day. You look at the clock and realize that you have some hours before bedtime. You're not particularly sleepy either. There's no shows or movies that you're excited to see currently, nor are you interested in going through a show again. So naturally, as you did while growing up, each day after school, with or without your friends involved, you go to that one device you love and boot it up. But now, unlike the old days, you're not as excited to play. The glimmer in your eye is gone, and you wish you could have the energy and enthusiasm that your younger self had when life was simpler, more colorful. For a brief moment which feels like minutes, you reminisce on the times where you would rush to your screen happily, while now you're barely dragging yourself to your station. You get yourself a drink, maybe some snacks, fix your seat and get comfortable. Although, it is noticeable that you still carry all of your tiredness from the outside. You don't jump onto your seat anymore. You fall onto it. You're not animated or energetic. Instead, your shoulders drop and you feel loose and droopy. And as you put on your headphones, you stop. Your hands stop on your games library, on your home screen, while you sit and contemplate what to even play, or if playing is even worth it. You sit there weighing all the options, and whether or not you'll enjoy them, or have the energy for them in the first place. As you look through your games, some are better or can be played only with friends, some you've played to death already, some need time to get into, some you're too tired to play, and some you're just not in the mood for. So you might go and browse the store to see if any games catch your eye, but your eyes just glaze over. So you end up either scrolling on social media, deadening your already shortening attention span even more, maybe get a couple funny posts within the 200 you scroll, or maybe you go to Twitch and type messages hoping your streamer reads it out loud, or you sit there in the background just watching till your bedtime comes. Maybe you enjoy long-form content and go to YouTube, scrolling through the home page for what feels like minutes. Then you settle, not choose, settle on watching a video about video games or people playing video games that you're not even interested in or have ever played in your life. Or instead, you watch them play the same exact video game that you own instead of playing it on your own. This begs the question, what happened? You can now open your eyes. If this resonates with you, know that you're not alone. Many others share similar sentiments. Now that a general foundation is set, I'll address the rest of my points and chapters to keep myself from straying off topic. And I hope that by the end of this video, you've found your answer and what to do about it. The definition of the sunk cost fallacy is the phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of action because they have invested heavily in it, even when it's clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. We all have that one game that we go on and play, where the majority of our time is spent, because it just feels like home. They're the games you go to if you have nothing else to play, or even if you do, you play that one game by default. This game is the first game that you mention to your friends when you ask them what to play, or it's the first game you hover before deciding what to play. These games, for those who are competitive or have a group to play with, are often live service games, as in, you're playing an online game with other people doing the same thing you are. Maybe you're more of a fan of casual games, family-friendly games, story-rich games, platformers, strategy games, action-oriented games, open-world games, or adventure games. And your go-to game falls under one or more of those genres. When I was 15, a bunch of my friends told me to play this game that was free to play, which they've been playing for a year more or less. A game that a lot of people enjoyed, had massive player counts, and that would be very fun to play together. That game was League of Legends.
An incredible game on the Viego in-game floor. Like you say, I think the BLG, they identified what they are good at, and that is team fighting 5v5. He likes this one though, 1 versus 3. He's absorbing so much, the Emperor's Divide. In comes him, but he's still alone. What's going on? Faker Tiny's on the burst. Everyone's just exploding. Now Faker is going to dash in, finds the charm onto the top catch. Faker has to get out of there though, can't be snapped. The hostile takeover gets so much work done. The Devour's in for the kills there. Going to be a 2v2. Zayas taking a bit of damage as the Q comes down. There's the ulti. Nature's cross, but look at the knockups, the kickback. Wei punches him out of it. Dawning Shadow flies through to help get the kill onto Zayas. It looked good for T1 and Weibo struck back.
Push, you can see Guma. Of course, you have to compare that with Crisp's goal.
Oh, brings him back in with the twisted advance, the kickback as well as Wei gets out the punch, and now Shahu coming on in. Oda's gonna burn down, and no bailout for you. Light's in a bit of trouble, but the charm is not gonna get it done because Crisp is...
After realizing the competitive nature of this game, and the amount of thinking you have to do in any average game, accompanied by its learning curve, I fell in love with it. I was fascinated by its depth and scale, and the many qualities of the game itself, alongside its entertaining competitive scene, which I barely missed any games of throughout the year, and I've cheered for underdogs and superstars alike. Maybe it was the novelty of it, or the way that the game has stuck to me throughout the years and always offered me somewhere to be and something to do in my downtime. Maybe it was the complexity in my friends who kept me coming back time and time again, and as I met new friends and fell out with old ones, I'd get them into playing League of Legends, and repeat the cycle. That being said, I decided to quit League of Legends after playing it for 7 years. Before I quit, I clocked in 7,000 hours, which means that on average, I spent 3 hours a day playing League of Legends across those 7 years every single day. But I promise that the time I spent on reading guides and getting better at theoretical topics that are about the game might just put it at 9,000. The reason I quit the game was because it no longer was what it used to be for me. It was no longer my League of Legends. The direction the company was taking, alongside the meta and the many changes to the game, made the game a chore to play. Instead of feeling elated or happy, I'd be miserable and brain dead most of the time that I played the game, often chat restricted for 15-day intervals at a time, due to slipping up and calling someone bad at the game, which Riot's chat system categorizes as harassment and mutes you for it, gradually increasing the punishment. This isn't to say that it was entirely the game's fault. I was also losing my competitive edge, being unable or finding it difficult to increase my rank to a point where I used to get with ease. And I finally got the realization that not only was the game different, I was also not as good as I used to be. And the most important point was, I realized that I holistically was not ready to invest more time or effort to be good at the game. I'm not telling you this to rant about League of Legends, but the smart among you have already made connections to what this might mean to the game that they play, their go-to game. I have to emphasize that it is paramount that you anchor yourself in honesty and truth, and once you do, ask yourself, is the game you play all the time fun, You know, fun? That thing we all used to have before it was gone from our lives? Exclaiming excitedly, laughing, or being way too animated and immersed? Are you enjoying the time you spend on the game? Or do you just rage and get angry? Not out of your competitiveness, but out of frustration and annoyance. Not out of your desire to win, but for your need to not lose. Does ending a session of that game leave you unenergized and speechless, whether or not you won or lost? Does it feel like a weight was lifted off of your very being once you go back to the matchmaking screen? These and many more similar questions are questions that you should be asking yourself. And it's really necessary that you ask yourself these questions, as they will hold a piece of the puzzle to not only enjoy video games again, but to enjoy your life as a whole. If the game you play is in nature life service and competitive, then I invite and encourage you to please disregard any delusions of grandeur you have. If you haven't gotten to the 1% of players within the first year of you playing the game, chances are you probably won't get there. It is not impossible, but it's improbable. If you're playing a competitive game and you're not striving to be on the top, then why are you playing the competitive game? It just means you're wallowing in the mud while you could have been better. You don't have anything to be afraid of, nor do you have anything to prove. No one will think of you more or less by being at the rank and position that you currently are in your favorite game. No one's opinion but your own should matter to you. And even if you say you're doing it for yourself and to prove yourself something, then you should ask yourself, at what cost? And is it even worth it? Remember that everything in your life has an opportunity cost. The time you spent doing one thing is time you're not spending doing something else. Just remember that. In my mind, living and going about daily life is already hard enough. You don't need to stress after you're done from doing stressful things. The time you have between sleep and the things you have to do are meant for decompression, relaxation. Why would you voluntarily ruin your day and send yourself to bed, either hypnotized by your phone or deadened by an unpalatable gaming experience? The difference between you now and you long ago, disregarding the responsibilities and obligations you have, is that back in the day, you played to have fun. Even if you played these same games that cause you stress now, you were in school or practice at most and experienced very little mental pressure from the outside. Nowadays, you have a job, or a family, or college, or papers to hand in, or sick people to take care of, or God knows what else, and you put this game onto your already busy, eventful day. You cannot expect yourself to clock into work and everyday events, then clock into a game you're competitive about, and repeat it tomorrow. That will poke holes in your soul, and you'll feel even more pressured and upset about the outside world, since the reality that you have no time to rest beyond turning your brain off and not feeling anything the entire day begins to cement itself more and more every day that you repeat this. The key out of this cycle lies in breaking the sunk cost fallacy. Just because you've spent 10,000 hours or $10,000 in a game doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Move on. It's not your game anymore. It's not for you anymore. It's like you're in a relationship and you're being disrespected, cheated on, and spit on, yet you still come back and have hope for better things because you spent a long time in your relationship. Why do you think people have careers playing this game? The reason you watch people play these games on YouTube instead of playing it on your own is that these people are either content creators, speedrunners, or professional players. These people get their bite from committing to efficiency, content creation, or the rigorous and routine applications of themselves. These people don't deal with the same things that you do. These people fall under one or two branches. They either live and breathe these games that you play only casually and set a casual amount of hours for, or they have all the time in the world to sit there and create fun, entertaining ideas and play the game to oblivion. You are neither of those. In League of Legends, I used to play 2 to 300 ranked games maximum in an entire season. A season spans over a year. Pro players play that many games in 2 weeks and make their living off of that. And that's why they get paid. There's this trend with men in their 20s feeling lost and that they should have done something for themselves and known better since they were 12, since a person their age 30 years ago had a wife, 2 kids, and a house, which makes them feel hopeless about their future. If you're worried about wasting time, then there's nothing more wasteful than spending all the hours of free time that you have playing a game that you cannot use for your future, that you do not feel good playing, and that you don't even think is fun anymore. Now, with all that in mind, please Tell me how you think you can start getting back on the saddle or make an impact on your rank or your gaming prowess after your prime time, after the period where you had the most free time to do anything you wanted to do. It is a fact that most pro players become pro players and make that decision at a young age. They drop out of school. Some don't even see high school in their life. You cannot put yourself in comparison with these people or people who are much younger than you. This extends to any field, really, but comparing yourself to those who have dedicated significantly more effort is unrealistic. That's just being delusional. This is not tied to video games. This happens all the time in the real world. Everyone commits their time to different things. They have the time to make mistakes, they have the time to learn from their mistakes, and they have the time to be angry and process their anger. While you're sitting here fresh off of a part-time or full-time job, having to wake up early and being partially sleep deprived, you come home and expect to have fun in a competitive game that you dislike, getting ticked off by each and every action that your teammates do, and you, unsurprisingly, lose. If you want to compare your journey with observable metrics of success, then just go to Twitch. Go to Twitch and search for any of these hyper competitive games. Search for League of Legends, for example, okay? And then notice everyone who has a high viewer count. They're one of three people. Someone who's been playing the game for a very long time, thus having an established fan base. Someone who's really good at the game, or someone who's a pro player. The amount of people who are fun, entertaining content creators that don't have a skill set or aren't good enough at the game are there, but they're extremely low, okay? And after you notice all these successful people, quote unquote, then look at the ocean of people who are not there, who wish to be them but will never be. I'm not telling you this to shit on people. I'm telling you this so that you can observe that you are among the majority of people. You are not that 1%. You are not that person. Therefore, feeling demotivated by being beaten by kids or losing your edge is a stupid thing because you're like an old racehorse. You're tired, you're incapable, you're past your prime, and you have a lot of other things going on that others don't have to deal with. You should 100% be beaten by kids, and it's very expected of you to lose your edge. There is no penalty for you losing your edge. There's no cost to yourself if you lose your edge. You know who's gonna suffer if they lose their edge? People who are just being viewed because they're good at the game. Pro players. These people will have an actual existential crisis if they're not good enough. Because that's all they do, that's their entire identity. Therefore, what you're doing is a hobby. And you can't be mad at being bad at your hobby because it's a hobby. You're not invested in it and spending an absurd amount of time trying to get better at it. And even if you are, then either you're very tired from the things you're doing, thus your brain isn't in the sponginess that it should be for you to absorb all these things, or your temper is shortened because you have so much shit that you deal with throughout the day that it just isn't worth it. Why would you go through a difficult process after you've been through a difficult day already? This is very important for you to know because it will help you imagine the types of people you're playing with. You might be playing with someone who's good at the game but fallen off, or someone who's starting to get good at the game. You could be playing with someone who's overworked from a job and they just are here because this is the only normalcy that is in their day that they're conscious of. So they go to work, it's boring and unstimulating and tiresome, then they sleep. What's in between, they just want some normality. They want the same game, the same textures, the same things, just so they could feel a sense of normalcy. There also is a kid playing the game who is in school and he just came off of school, which means he essentially has 12 to 14 hours of free League of Legends time. And just because someone at this rank compliments you or maybe is talking badly about their teammates because you did something good, don't let it get to your head. The reality is you're average at best. Unless you're within that upper echelon of the player base, this is where the majority of people are. These are the people who are like you. And at the end of the day, whether you hate these people or you like these people, the fact of the matter is, if these people didn't play the game at the same exact time that you are, then you would never get into a game. So try to reframe the way you're thinking about this. Because if the people you're playing with are on the younger side, or on the people who are just dedicating themselves to playing the game and have nothing else going on in their lives, then why are you surprised or upset? These people can do all the things that you cannot with all the time that you do not have. If you're bad at the game you're playing and you're getting upset over it and calling people no lives in chat, then this just goes to show that you're still stuck in the mentality that you were in when you were playing these games with more free time. You are still in that same competitive mindset that you were in when you started playing the game or when the game started hitting it for you. But you're calling these people no lives because you internally realize these people are better than you. It doesn't matter how they are or if they're taunting you. What matters is that you subconsciously realize these people spend more time on the game and they have more time to spend on the game. The difference between you now and you back in the day is that even if you got stomped by someone, then you could dedicate yourself to being better at the game, to learn concepts, to practice, and to get good, and eventually stomp those same people who stomped you and get higher in the ranked ladder. But now, you get upset, you look at the time, and you have 1 hour before you sleep. You have a limited amount of free time now. What do you expect? This isn't how it's meant to be, man. Have some respect for yourself. If you're going to be competitive, you need to be realistic. Otherwise, you risk ruining what little free time you have in your day. Regardless of whether these words resonate with you personally or with someone you know, please prioritize your mental well-being in every decision you make. Life is already hard enough. There's no reason to stress yourself out further. Because what you're doing to yourself right now is like you getting out of an age range where you need to stop drinking or smoking, but you still keep drinking and smoking. I'm not telling you that these games are meant for only those people who have a lot of free time or are really skilled in the game. It's the entire purpose of these games is to be challenging and to pose a challenge. But the challenge shouldn't be to test your patience. If you're getting upset by these games, stop playing them. There is an age that you need to quit smoking or drinking even if you are involved in your teens, and you need to get your life together. You shouldn't keep these habits that needed to be weeded out in your life a very long time ago in the life that you are carrying today. Especially, there are aspects of that life that you cannot choose. For example, you need to have a job. You need to have better sleep schedules. You need to have better nutrition. You don't need to be 50 to do these things. Just like you need to stop smoking sometime in your 20s and quit drinking sometime in your 20s. This is an important decision to make. And you're just dragging something after yourself that will eventually lead to your downfall, whether mentally, whether physically, something bad will come off of it. And it's not an exaggeration. People take smoking as a joke until they get lung cancer. People take drinking as a joke until it starts hurting themselves and those around them. This game is hurting you. This game is draining your mental energy and it's upsetting you. This is a voluntary action, and you keep voluntarily choosing to ruin your day every single day in the chance that you get. Please remember, games are meant to be enjoyed, not endured. Whether or not you noticed, the quality of games by major publishers and in general has been dwindling for a while now. This isn't a surprise. This happens everywhere in the world, in every field imaginable. When someone makes a successful product, which in committee and corporation language translates as something that proves profitable, everyone will try to get on the train to sucker in consumers by offering inferior, yet similar, products. If you're consciously looking for this trend, then you'll find that everywhere you look, this trend is to be seen. However, one period that you might recall vividly was during the heights of mobile gaming, where everyone had some staples on their phones, which over the months and years had 1 million copycats reskinning their games. This is detrimental to the quality of games we get and the products we get in general. What should happen ideally, and what we should all want, is people doing things because they have a vision or a dream of doing it, and are dedicated to put themselves through whatever it takes in order to achieve it. We want people to do what they're passionate about, and the thing that gives their life meaning, something they believe is their way of leaving their mark on the world. People who will stay up endless hours without even considering it. People who just can't go to sleep because they could do that one tiny adjustment. The people who want to improve the world and send a message through their actions and creations. In the world of video games, that means we want developers who are tailoring an experience, allowing us to see things from the eyes of the authors and perfectly blending in gameplay mechanics and visual design, all in service of doing the intended experience justice. Or creating scenarios or environments where the player can get their own individual story as characters and players, making the player intrigued and immersed without them knowing in the character, the story, the gameplay, making them sit at the very edge of their seats. What we're looking for is that perfect intersection of visual design, gameplay, and story. Although, depending on the genre, getting two of those really well is enough to make that game a very, very well made game. But this is also heavily game dependent. But instead, we're here, where the majority of AAA games fail to deliver, being riddled with committee-driven design, microtransactions, and the lack of soul that defined the earlier classics that we all loved and enjoyed, like Far Cry after Far Cry 3, BioShock after Infinite, Mass Effect after 3, Assassin's Creed after 2, Fallout after New Vegas, Call of Duty after Modern Warfare 2, Fable after 2, The Sims after 2, Command & Conquer after Red Alert 2, Diablo after 2, Final Fantasy after 10, Dragon's Age after Origins, Halo after 3, Need for Speed after Most Wanted, Max Payne after 2, Metal Gear Solid after 3, Resident Evil after 4, Tomb Raider after Legend, Devil May Cry after 3, Street Fighter after 2, God of War after 3, Kingdom Hearts after 2, Medal of Honor after Allied Assault, Saints Row after 4. Do I go on? The people responsible are people who just think of our hobby as a way to make money and nothing else. These people often find themselves either in powerful positions through nepotism or favors in companies like Blizzard, Ubisoft, Activision, Bethesda, EA, and the list goes on. Companies that seem to be trying their best to spit on all their player bases and murder their beloved games at once, headed by people who don't know the first thing about the games to begin with, or people who are fully convinced that you're nothing but a moron with money. Or they're non-creative leeches of successful products with some skill set in video game development, and they pump out inferior clones of the games that were made by the people with a vision in the hopes of roping you in. These people, regardless of where they are, pray at the altars of some god of greed, and they milk you like a cow for every cent you've got, because they think of you as a cow to be milked. The invasive microtransactions, unfathomable prices upon release, purposefully exploitative and addictive design to get your rodent brain hooked while they're not even actually having any fun. And my absolute favorite, because they jingle a few shiny keys that I'm going to call graphics, and you will all flock to them like the cattle you are, because the belt buckle in the shitty game you're playing shines against the ray tracing. If you agree with what has been said so far in this chapter, then you're going to feel really upset when you realize that this is all your fault. Because if you agree with these prior statements, yet you pay these companies money, you're proving them exactly right. That you are indeed a moron who they could serve gruel and manure, and you'll happily eat it up like the pig you are. Paying $70 for a game upon release, which is buggy and unfinished, needing 20 patches to get it into a state of a game they made under the same franchise 10 years ago, while adding nothing new to its formula. All because you have an immense fear of missing out, a horrible intrinsic need to burn your money, or have tragically bad long-term memory as you keep forgetting how they keep butchering game after game that they make. Had you been savvy consumers and stopped eating up their garbage and voted with your wallets on what you wanted to play, then all of these companies will come to a crossroads where they either go bankrupt or they start doing things like it was done in the days of old. And they make quality products that maybe, if you're feeling it, you'll throw them $1 for. Currently, the purchasing power is all in the hands of the companies and corporations, not just in video games, but every other field, because everyone flocks to them like mentally impaired people, shower them with money, and defend them in comment sections and forums. Companies and corporations that will never know their name, what they do in life, or acknowledge their existence beyond being another wallet that they get paid from. Just a mere statistic on a graph, a number on a projector that they show their investors and stakeholders, and nothing more. The situation is like this today because we have lost our credibility as customers and consumers. To describe this as an analogy, then the collection of industries is like a farmer, and we're animals. What we choose to be is up to us. And as you know, not every animal eats everything. But time and time again, we prove them that we're pigs, and pigs eat garbage. So, like the smart farmers that they are, they only feed us the waste product, low effort, easily produced garbage because we have proven them that we're content eating garbage. And now, if you have a revelation and wake up from the trance and realize that you don't want to eat garbage anymore, you go up to the farmer and say, Mr. Farmer, can I have an Undertale? He'll take one look at you and say, and go back to feeding the pigs. Why would he ever care about your highly demanding diet? He could just go cater to the 99% of pigs by feeding them garbage, and his farm would run just fine because you have no impact on his business on your own. This is the reality for the overwhelming majority of industries nowadays. There is no respect for you as a consumer. In the video games industry, everyone publishes a game under a famous name or franchise and know for certain that masses of idiots will go and pay them $80 for the deluxe edition and $120 for the extra crispy deluxe edition with cheese. This problem is twofold, because while you might sit there and think, oh well, we're just gonna count on the indie game developers who have passion to keep us afloat, then you need to wake up and realize that they won't be able to do anything if you keep spending money in the wrong places. What kind of incentive outside of self-destruction does an indie game developer have when all that gets funded and has the attention of the mainstream is all the shiny, pretty, graphically intensive garbage games? What's he supposed to do for a living? How will he pay the bills while he's working on this? Had we all paid passionate creatives from the start and continued to reject the copycats and shiny lookalikes, the companies would look at them and try their hand at making a quality product to get your money and attention. A product that is reasonably priced, made with love, and has a lingering effect other than boredom or disappointment once you're done playing it. The fact that that's not the reality that we live in proves otherwise, that we have indeed made an environment where the video game publishers fling handfuls of shit at each other like apes to impress their investors while we go to their feet to eat it up like pigs. And as I said, this isn't a problem with the video games industry alone. I would say that we are the least savvy, most brain-dead consumers ever since the Industrial Revolution. At least when we were putting lead into gasoline, we didn't know what we were doing. Far from it, we were stupid. But nowadays, it's all intentional. Every pebble, every effect, every angle in a trailer is intentionally made. We've gotten to a point where innovationless, passionless, soulless garbage is being marketed to us all the time from all angles to appeal to nostalgia and milk people who have beloved franchises that they grew up with, instead of quality products, movies, or games. And everyone keeps voting with their wallets. If you see anything wrong with how you're being treated by a company or corporation, just think before you complain. Maybe you, and everyone like you, are the entire cause of why the company treats you like pigs. Because you were the people who put them in power to begin with. But something that you all seem to forget is that you could get them out of power just as easily. If you want to regain power and credibility over these companies, these studios, these people, you have to vote with your wallet. The money you spend in one place is money not spent everywhere else. Otherwise, you only have yourself to blame. They murder your franchises, they exploit your brain with intentionally addictive design, flog intrusive microtransactions, and are priced insanely high compared to the most highly rated, chart-topping games that they made back in the days, or the indie games that dominate the Steam shop. In the previous chapter, I talked about consumer awareness, corporations, and how corporations make bad games. Now, let's get our definitions clear so that we're all on the same page. When I say a game is bad, I mean that it's either a buggy game, a game with bad controls, or a game with visual glitches. In a word, the game is unplayable. Nowadays, it should be completely within the rights of the consumers and customers of any product to expect a baseline quality which is at a high level. We're no longer in the periods of not knowing which video game format's gonna work. We're no longer in the beginning of a technological era. We cannot and should not excuse games that have horrible controls, visual tearing and glitches, or bugs that keep crashing your game from being called games. These aren't games. They're attempts made by developers who need more time and training. They're demos at best. These aren't games. Games are playable, games are consistent, and games put their best foot forward. We're no longer in the age where people need to make their own engines, and even if they did want to make their own, it's much easier than before. There's no excuse for the existence of mechanically bad games. And mind you, this is not an uninformed take. I graduated with a computer science degree. It really isn't that daunting of a task anymore. From now on, when I talk about games, I'm referring to games that are perfectly playable, that wouldn't cause you crashes or issues, and that play smoothly beginning to end without hardware compatibility issues, which happens to be the majority of games. Instead, the word I'm going to use to describe games that shouldn't have existed due to their lack of innovation, originality, and/or meaningful additions to their prequels, their franchises, or gaming as a medium, as soulless. Most of the games that I dislike and don't play, plenty of people love. They're perfectly playable games, but to me, they're games that don't have a reason to exist. They're more often than not just riding the same trendy wave of a game that's successful with a story overhaul. Just because the story of The Last of Us, which was about an old decrepit man who has trauma and a dead child relearning to love and getting back in touch with his humanity through a child, was good, engaging, and heartfelt, doesn't mean that Santa Monica Studios should turn Kratos of all people, a perfectly well-written character with a perfectly suitable and satisfactory ending, who nestled in the hack and slash genre extremely comfortably and presented something that wasn't like it upon its release and until the duration of God of War 3, into an old, quiet, decrepit, hairy man with a son and trauma and dead wife, and he's been trying to heal, and I don't fucking know, man. Look, this is like going off script, but mark my words. God of War is the death of the God of War franchise. We are witnessing the release of games after Far Cry 3. This was how it was when Far Cry 4 was released. This is the beginning of the end for the God of War franchise. What the fuck are they gonna do? Go to Egypt next?
It's a God of War pushing minigame. Oh my god. I will never succeed. I will never succeed. Whoa! Oh my god, I did all that! Whoa! Whoa! Oh, it's probably Thor. Yep. Next game, it's gonna say yeah, go to next game. Yep. Coming 2024, God of War Ragnarok. Please kick me out of the game. 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 Yes. Yes. It's over. It's over. It's over. It's over.
When I say that Horizon Forbidden West is a soulless game, I'm fully basing my opinion off of how vacuous, uninspiring, unmoving, and unoriginal the entire thing is. It's a game that gives you the option to choose dialogue, which you'd think in any video game that offers you such a thing, that it would actually be beneficial to you to investigate further and talk to the characters. Instead, the story's disconnected, the characters seem to be voice acted from different zip codes, and for a game that's putting most of its egg in the basket of story, then it's perfectly normal for me to point out and say, hey, the thing you're basing your entire game around is garbage. Games like Horizon Forbidden West overwork artists and employees and force them through tedious work hours and dreadful deadlines, all to make their game palatable to a broad audience, because they know that most of the people who might be watching this very video are like children, and all they need is a keychain with shiny jingling keys, and and they would hand out their wallets in an instant. And mind you, I'm not disregarding the importance of spectacle, visual clarity, or the limit testing we could do to push the edges of realism with graphics hardware today. Immersion is just as important as anything else, and in fact, it's a primary cornerstone of what makes you play a game to begin with. But here's the thing, if your immersion comes purely or majorly only from how a game looks, and if your purchasing decisions are mainly influenced by how good a game looks, then you're nothing but a man who marries a woman for her beauty and her beauty alone, and seeks out marriage for the main and only purpose of obtaining a beautiful partner, and that's all I need to say to you to get my point across. Remember, just like the woman you choose for her beauty, your game will stay how it is, until age erodes the only thing you liked about it. Our technology is always an improvement, and always moving forward. Just look at the past. Games that were seen as pinnacles of realism and technological advancement a decade ago are now on par with 2012 creepypastas. You're purchasing a product that is utilized through an interactive medium that you'll have to interact with in order to progress. Hold the controller or keyboard and continuously prompt your device to engage with the video game. And something has to fill that time. You're not buying a painting. You're gonna have to do stuff to progress your game and finish it. All the companies know you're completely the opposite though. All they do is make flashy trailers, selectively and carefully handpick or coordinate the shit out of a scene which includes 10 seconds of gameplay at most, and load it all up with pre-animated cutscenes while bombastic music plays in the background. You're being marketed to. They're taking advantage of you and your incapability to resist something based on looks. Everybody now knows that video game trailers are a scam. They're advertisements, not showcases. Everyone knows that if something appears in the trailer, it most likely won't be in the game. And I hope that everyone knows, if they truly made such a game and such a product that they claim to have during their trailers, then they wouldn't even need to discuss its release. It would surface on its own and top the chart based on its own merit. Since I've only slightly shed light on the graphics portion of a video game, in this subsection, I thought it would only make sense that I explain things visually and help you see things the way I do by using an analogy. Video games could be represented by a Venn diagram with 3 interlacing circles. One we'll call story, one we'll call gameplay, and one we'll call graphics. Now let's keep that right where it is. Let's think of video games as if they're women. By that logic, they should also have 3 components to fit our Venn diagram. In the circle of story, we'll write principle. In the one with gameplay, we'll write personality. And in the one with graphics, we'll write beauty. And when I say beauty, I mean cutting-edge AAA standard graphics. The intersection between beauty and principle gives you a good-looking girl with integrity, a moral compass, loyalty, honesty, and in short, principle. Despite her good looks and existing core values, this person ends up being boring. If she has no personality, that is to say she has some or many of the following traits, which are her voice is monotone, her facial expressions are limited, she engages with everything minimally, is predictable and lethargic, unengaging and unenthusiastic, awkward and lacks social skills, a literal thinker with no sense of humor, or a serious conformist without a single original thought in their head, then there's no blame for you to be bored of her, because she simply does not engage anyone. The games in this intersection where they don't have gameplay can be described under the same descriptors. They're boring, slogs to go through, unengaging, and are the main reason people stop or quit playing games. The intersection of games that follows not having gameplay literally is quite small and represents a minority of women as it does a minority of video games. Something incredibly important to highlight for you here is that a game's gameplay is what you'll be engaging with the majority of your time that you're playing the game. Just like a girl's personality is what you'll be dealing with the majority of your time interacting or living with her. Her life philosophies come up in topics, but she wouldn't be interested in discussing them with you to begin with. And even if she would, they're just guides in her actions. Her beauty is only available to your eyes, which means if she's not directly in front of you, then there's nothing to enjoy. And even if she is, how much mileage can you get out of something just looking beautiful and doing nothing? That leaves her personality to be the thing that you'll always be under the full exposure of, whether you want to or not. The only games that fall under this umbrella, if we use the Venn diagram literally, are walking simulators. Games that don't offer much but a cinematic experience and narration, and involve very minimal interaction from the player. The only actual notable game that I could recall that was majorly successful from this oversaturation of narration and visuals without many gameplay elements was that Dragon Cancer. The intersection between gameplay and graphics gives you a good looking girl who has a personality, is interesting, funny, engaging, opens up topics, probes your mind, and is authentically asking about your life to get answers and use them later. But she has no principle. This is to say that she has some or many of the following traits. She's a selfish, dishonest, untrustworthy, opportunistic hypocrite who practices moral relativism and interacts with you with intents of exploitation and manipulation, is short-sighted and impulsive, has no disregard for others, lacks empathy, shifts blame, and avoids accountability and taking responsibility. This intersection is interesting because just like how the overwhelming majority of women fall under this intersection, so do a majority of video games. And before I move on to elaborating this point, any women who heard the aforementioned statement and know their worth is higher than to be counted as one of those women won't be offended by it. And if you're a male who got offended by the aforementioned statement, then know that everyone knows exactly what you're doing, and no woman will sleep with you because of exactly that reason. And as you've probably known from first-hand experience, they're infinitely more likely to sleep with the same people they trash talk because unlike you, they're men. The games that fall under this intersection are plenty and have plenty of genres, but the truest genre that encompasses a game with no story are sandboxes, games where the story is either non-existent, very mildly important, or not there altogether. Many of these sandbox games aim to entirely make you the focal point of the story, your progression, your decisions, and the legacy that you leave behind. So, for the purposes of accurate classification, all of these games that barely grant any direction and give total freedom to the player are disqualified from being counted as games with bad story. Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal are stellar examples of such games. Even though they're not sandboxes, they're amazing movement shooters which barely have any story if at all. Mainly because these games are leaning so heavily on how much ass their gameplay kicks and how tight their primary gameplay loop is that it wouldn't even be fair to call these games with bad stories, as there are none. Thus they're disqualified from counting as games with bad stories just because none exists. Keep in mind that this does not mean that these games are good or bad. It just means that they're currently uncategorized by me using this method. Instead of that, I'd like to focus on the slog and the slop that's produced by the system. The production of most publishers falls under here. Games with stories that shouldn't have existed, stories that add nothing to previous installments of their respective franchises, and stories that, due to their repetitive gameplay cycles, make them unappealing in both regards. Pattern recognition is truly a blessing. Once you see the same thing happen time and time again, it only makes sense to get bored of it. Don't you all feel pandered to? Don't you feel your intelligence insulted as you play games that start out the same way, take power from you in the middle section the same way, and end the same way, having meaningless choices offered to you as if they change anything but the color of what you're gonna get at the end? It doesn't really matter what the color of your story cube is. If it's a cube, and the point in time where a cube was celebrated as something revolutionary, new, and interesting is long gone, then you're like an audience seeing the same movie with different set pieces and furniture, yet the same plot playing out and laughing again and again and again. Oh wait, that's just Marvel and DC fans. Your laughter in that theater is what led to the existence of God of War 4, led to the existence of Horizon Forbidden West, led to the existence of 40 Assassin's Creed games after they stopped being cool, led to the existence of 40 Far Cry games after 3 completely wrapped up everything that could be done with that format. These games don't have souls. They exist to capitalize on trends and the saying of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The final intersection is between personality and principle, where you get a woman who engages and interests you at every point, who takes care of your heart, shelters it, grows it, buys you gifts, speaks your love language, and tries to speak it even if it's not her own. She presses all the right buttons and ticks all of your checkboxes. You don't feel insecure, sad, manipulated, taken advantage of, and you finally feel bliss. You feel that she's just as much of a sparring partner as refuge and warmth, just as much a caretaker as a teacher, just as much as the girl who was meant for you and you alone, as she's your best friend. She shows you at every opening and every interval that she wouldn't exist or be with you outside of God's own will. This is where the love of video game development crystallizes into its purest form. And this love between you and this girl is just as real and felt as the love of a developer of their product. This is a minority of women, just as it is a minority of games, that cause you to completely, for the first time, open your eyes. You realize that it doesn't matter if it has pixelated graphics, just like it doesn't matter if she doesn't have the biggest assets. You get that epiphany and entirely awaken from your core and become aware of the delusion of beauty and beauty standards. And you make the connection all by yourself in a moment of subconscious revelation that beauty is all subjective and that the right person, no matter how they look, looks perfect to you. This love is felt when you play these games. It is clear that you feel this love, regardless of the genre. Something inaudible speaks to you. Something invisible surrounds you. Something ephemeral embraces you. It is nothing but the amalgamation of love represented by the effort and message that is perfectly wrapped in an engaging, fun, interactive, and immersive gameplay experience. These are the games like Undertale, Darkwood, SpiritFarer, Spec Ops The Line, Papers, Please, The Last of Us, Celeste, Firewatch, Far Cry 3, Night in the Woods, The Stanley Parable, Heavy Rain, Inside, Nier Automata, Disco Elysium, Pyre, Shadow of the Colossus, Inscription, The Binding of Isaac, Bioshock Infinite, Hyperlight Drifter, Ori and the Blind Forest, Silent Hill 2, Outer Wilds, Resident Evil 4, Oneshot, Dark Souls, and many more. And those are the games that are story heavy. But my emphasis is on the love that makes you forget the garbage visual standards. Otherwise, games like Minecraft, Terraria, Rimworld, Don't Starve, Portal 2, Stardew Valley, Left 4 Dead, Pizza Tower, Half-Life 2, Hollow Knight, Hat in Time, Dead Cells, Subnautica, Factorio, and many, many more would be on this list. You get the point now? Visuals don't matter. Visuals are subjective. They're tools to use to complement your visions of the game, not to dictate it. Art is like humans. They come in all shapes and sizes, but at the end of the day, the only thing that truly matters is what the art piece represents, regardless of how it looks while representing it. Because if the message is beautiful, so will be the art. This was a long video, and it has taken me a good while to sit there and get all my thoughts organized in order to put it into a script in a comprehensive manner. Before I leave you go, I want to tell you something. Gamer to gamer, you're doing a great job. Keep at it and focus on incremental improvements, and take every day one step at a time. You can do whatever you want to do, but if you take my advice, I'd seriously recommend you stay away from life service games. And even if you do, just take them easy. Split your time between games that are worth playing instead, and that were made with love by people with a vision. Everyone works hard for their money. Don't waste yours on garbage. Don't waste your time on things that seem the tiniest bit like they're not worth it. Move on and have no strings attached. Life's too short to spend being upset at video games. You'll do just fine without them. And as a parting gift, in front of you will be a graphic that's made up of the games that I recommend you play based on what genre you're interested in. There really are no bad choices, and they will 100% make you feel and get you back in touch with that child that loved playing video games so long ago. If you can hear this, I want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, as I felt that I got something very important off of my chest, and attempted to help those who might have felt like me regarding their video game paralysis. This is my channel's first video using this format, so if you liked the video, then for the sake of keeping up with future uploads, consider subscribing to my channel. I also plan to start streaming on Twitch, but haven't really locked up my schedule yet due to a horrendously messed up sleep schedule. It is 9:41 AM as I type this, and I haven't slept since 3 PM, but I digress. Thank you very much once again for watching, take care of yourself, and have a wonderful day.